And whether they learn the lesson today or next week, the more often they see people being generous, perhaps it will even inspire them to do the same. What if everybody was generous? What if instead of buying a more expensive car, I bought the car I needed and used the leftover money to help people whose cars were chronic repair problems? So that fewer people in my town would have chronic problems with their automobiles. We may even be absolutely friends when we're driving down the highway, and over a month's time, maybe we would suddenly notice that there were many fewer rush hour traffic accidents than there had been, and many fewer people getting wounded, and many fewer insurance claims for repairing cars that had been in rush hour accidents. And then maybe, in my idealistic fashion, insurance companies wouldn't charge so much because they wouldn't have to pay for all these claims. Or the cynic would say maybe they'll find something else to do with all the money. What if cynicism was not the only answer? What if believing in people really did accomplish something good? And it can if each of us, individually and collectively together, begin to push our world in that direction. If when we're the one who works at the insurance company making the policy decisions and stuff, and such, that we do make the decision. Are we going to give everyone a huge bonus this year, or are we going to cut the rates and be nice to our customers because they, after all, are the reason that our business exists? And maybe we would decide, the customers deserve it. It's been a hard year. We're in an economic downturn. Numerous people have been laid off. We need to help the community in which we live by making things affordable instead of putting more money in our own pockets, to invest that money in the health and economic strength of our communities. What if everybody invested in the economic strength of their communities? At one time when there was a real estate surge going on in the Denver metro area, I calculated there were houses that could be bought for $500,000, and there were houses that could be bought for $150,000. And I calculated at the time that if you could find someone who was going to be really, really frugal with the money, that the difference between those two, I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but it seemed to me, the way I calculated it out, that if you found someone who was willing to work as a tutor at a minimum comfortable level, not rich or anything, but if they were, for the peace of mind it would be, and the lack of stress, the desirable situation, if someone was willing to be a teacher, a tutor for your children, and live at a very frugal, modest level, that you could basically, by choosing to live in a modest $150,000 house instead of a $500,000 house, I think what I remember is that I calculated someone could live in a modest sort of way for 20 years on the difference. You could hire a private tutor for your children for 20 years on the difference between buying a modest house and an excessive house. It's kind of like Dolly Parton in the movie Straight Talk, when she is leaving her job and they say, well, you'll need a car, and she says, nobody needs a $65,000 automobile. I'm more of a Pontiac or maybe a Chevy. And I'm sure Pontiac and Chevy make good automobiles. I'm sure there's a lot of very affordable, modest vehicles that could be purchased instead of the high-end ones. And what you could do with the money in the difference in price is amazing in terms of the way you could strengthen your communities and eliminate problems. Crime rates would go down because people wouldn't have the impetus for stealing things when they could get them in legitimate ways. But it comes down to values, because somebody wanted a $500,000 home instead of spending the difference in the price on 20 years of educating their children. And that's disappointing, but of course that's a choice that people are free to make. But it keeps coming back to this question of what if? What if we valued each other more than we valued our cars and our houses and our lifestyles? What if we valued each other more than we valued eating out in restaurants every single night? What if we valued each other more than we valued conformity of ideas? That if my neighbor is a Jehovah's Witness or a Muslim or a Hindu, a pagan, a Christian, an evangelical, whatever my neighbor is, if I value my neighbor more than the fact that we agree or disagree on any particular subject, and learn to be friends with my neighbor, and am able somehow to establish communication and mutual respect between me and my neighbor, that I'm not trying to change them and they're not trying to change me, but we're each trying to be sure that the other is able to practice their religion, have a modest but decent home life. We build a stronger community, and it becomes a win-win situation. This is not difficult to imagine, except for trying to imagine whether people would actually do this. What if we gave them the chance to show that they could? And what if we kept giving them the chance to do the right thing, rather than only giving them the most cynical choices and giving them all the reinforcement they could possibly need for maintaining those cynical choices? That when somebody decides to trust someone and something bad happens, and instead of saying, "I'm so sorry that happened," to say, "Yeah, you should have known better. You can't trust anybody these days." And the problem with that, of course, is that the more that is reinforced and the more that's confirmed, the less likely they are to give someone a chance the next time, and the less likely it is that it will ever happen. The more unlikely it is that we will ever have anything better.